Welcome to TK Friday. Today it's bird photography and you. Stay tuned. Hello everyone and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Thanks for joining me again today on this TK Friday. This is absolutely my favorite day of the week. And again today I have some PDF notes for you to download. You'll find them in the description below this video. And don't forget to open up that description. Sometimes people can't find them and they are inside of the description, which YouTube generally closes up and only shows you a little bit. So click that open so you can find these notes here, and you'll also be able to download the image today, which is a beautiful image of a Wimbrel coming to us from Benny Strashunsky, and I hope I'm saying your name right, Benny. Please forgive me if I'm not, but thank you so much for the use of your image. If you have an image you would like me to edit on a TK Friday, at the very bottom of the description you'll find a contact link where you can get in touch with me. And now let's get started with the edit. Isn't this a great picture from Benny? This is a Wimbrel. I've never seen one before. I did some basic Lightroom edits on it, very minimal, brought it here into Photoshop and denoised it and sharpened it. I used that new product by Topaz called Photo AI. It's still in beta, but will be coming out in September. Now, don't forget, you can download this image. It'll look just like this. It's going to be a TIFF file, uncompressed, in the ProPhoto color space. I'm going to start out by doing something I always do, and that is coming up to the Luminosity Masks and clicking Midtones 3, and that just protects highlights and shadows. I'll output it to a color grading tool, and then I'll make some adjustments. And this just gets me started out. I call this step balance and contrast. Now remember, I do minimal adjustments in Lightroom, and this is where I really find the image starts to take shape, and I love this first step. I'm going to start out with midtones. You don't have to, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to open up the midtones a little bit, just lighten it up. And now see the water back here? It's a little bit light, and I found if I were to, let's click on the highlight block. Now, if I move this slider to the right, see how the water gets a lot lighter and your eyes draw more to it, but I want a more subdued background. So I found by experimentation, if I move this to the left, see how I can kind of like give it a little more smooth look, which really kind of brought me to my next step, but I'll get there shortly. But I like it right about here. And then I went to shadows, and I just wanted to deepen up the shadows, not much. Just a little bit, just adds a little bit more contrast. Now take a look, here is the before and here's the after. Now don't forget about the color grading area here. I didn't do any color grading on this because I think it looks really nice just the way it is, but we could work with color grading, maybe warm it up or cool it down, whatever you want. But I think this is a good first step. Hey, but wait a second, I just looked at my notes. I did warm this up a little bit in midtones. I added just a slight bit of warmth in the midtones, and yes, I knew it was missing something. Here's the before and here's the after. Oh yes, just sometimes a little tweak of this can be so good. My next step, which was inspired by this balance and contrast, when I moved that highlight slider to the left and smoothed that water out, I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I could make it a little smoother? And I was thinking, if you'll remember back several videos, I showed you how to do a reverse clarity action. So that's what we're going to do here. But what we need to do is, I'm going to select the bird, select this little in focus area in the foreground, and then we'll invert it, and that'll get us the background. Let me show you how to do it. The first thing I did was clicked on the select subject in the CX or combo panel, and it selects the bird out nicely. And then I got the object selection tool. And what you want to do is hold your shift key down. We're going to add to this selection. I want to add this in focus area down here. Now here's a little tip. If you make your image smaller, it'll be quicker to get around that area. Now you need to hold your shift key down while you do this. And we're just going to add this area in here. And the AI in Photoshop will do a really good job. At least it did for me. We'll see if it does a good job again. And now you can see the bird and this area are selected. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and see what this looks like. And it looks like it's done a pretty good job. It looks like it missed this little area right here. I'm going to hold the shift key down and add this to it. it's very important that you look these things over and make sure you get everything. Is there anything else along here that I missed? Everything looks pretty good, and I'm just going to go with that. But take your time, get it right. But I didn't even refine this selection, so I think we're going to be good. Now, this is not the area we want, so let's invert it. We can come over here to the CX or Combo panel and click right here to invert that selection. And now that selects the background. Then right up above there, click on that. And you'll get the Save Selection dialog coming up. And let's call this, let's just call it Background. And I'm just going to click OK. It'll save it to a channel. And you'll notice, now we don't see it here yet, but right here it saves it to a channel called Background. Okay, and we're going to be using that. And now for the clarity action, click on your TK Actions button, and we're going to find clarity, which is right here. It goes ahead and runs its thing. High pass filter dialog comes up, and I changed the radius to like 40 pixels. Now you can experiment around. Everything I do, you can change things and alter things, obviously, because you know what? You're the one in control, so you do what you want. I'm just giving you some ideas of what I did for my image, but feel free to experiment and have fun, and then just click OK. And now you'll notice we have a lot of detail over everything. Here is the before, and here's the after. Now we need to invert that. And we have a handy button right here on the CX or Combo panel. Click this, it'll invert that layer. And now you'll notice we have a nice soft look to the entire image, which is not what we want, but remember, we made a mask. Now let's go back to the CX or Combo panel, which I like to call my Swiss Army knife because it lets you do so many things very quickly in Photoshop. And there's a button here, often overlooked. This button right here, when you click it, it lets you apply a channel that you've saved. And you know, we saved this background channel. So we can go ahead and click on background. And just like that, we have a nice soft background. Now that's way too much. So I'm going to go ahead and take the opacity and take it the whole way off. And I'll use the layer opacity for this layer and dial in my adjustment. And I call this fine tuning. This is where you dial in them out. Now I chose like 50%, and I might just back that off a little bit, but experiment. I think I'm going to go to 40, but my note says 50. Here is the before, and here's the after, but just a little bit smoother, and I think that really works out well because I'm really trying to make this bird really be up front and center, which it is, but I want even more attention drawn to it, and that's what this edit's all about, bringing that bird to the forefront. With each and every step I do, I look for the next thing that I need to work on, any problem areas. And for me, the next problem area is this area where the bird is standing. I want to darken it up just a little bit, just to, again, bring emphasis to the bird. Notice this color grading tool here. Anytime you use it, it remains here until you close it by clicking this X. I'm going to click the X because it's hiding my multi-mask panel. So if you want to see your multi-mask panel, just click that X. I'm referring to the PDF note right now, step 4 to darken that area under the bird. And I used an object selection tool to lasso that area. I'm going to show you an alternate way. You can do it this way with a note, or I'll show you a way that I just thought, you know what, there's always different ways of doing things in Photoshop. So let me show you another way. We saved out the background as a channel. So let's come up here to My Channels. Let's click on Background. And we can see there's the background. Now I'm going to get a lasso tool. And what I want to do is just come right here. I want to lasso out this bird right like so. And now I'll grab my white brush at 100% opacity. It can be a very hard edge brush. And I'm just going to paint that bird off of there. And now I can go ahead and click this deselect button right here to deselect that. Because now I have the background, but it's the opposite of what I want, right? So what I'm going to do is click this invert button. And now there's that foreground area right there. So this is going to be a neat little trick. So you can do it this way or do it the way of the note. Now, if we look at the note, we'll be at this point where we're going to go ahead and save that out as a channel. That's the only difference. Now, what I'm going to do is save this out, or output this out, I should say, as a selection. And now I have that area selected. We can't see it because the marching ants are hidden, but you can see the marching ant indicator here. And if you click this button, you can see there it is. So click this and that's hidden away. Let's go ahead and save that as a channel because we'll be using My Channels to get it back. So let's click right here and I'm calling it area bird standing, and then click OK, and it will be down here in your channels all ready for you. Now, in case you've forgotten, this area is the area we want to darken. Okay, so we're going to come up here to Luminosity Masks, and I chose a Mids 2 because I thought it really represented that area really well right there. Right now we have Lights 2 over everything, so we're going to use the handy mask calculator. So click on the mask calculator. We're going to do an intersection, so click the X. We need to X out of here. Now we're going to go to My Channels, and we're going to grab that area bird standing, and when we click equals, we've got it right there. And now let's figure out what we're going to do with it. Well, we want to darken the area, so I'm going to use something I use a lot, and that is a levels adjustment layer. And let's put it in a multiply blend mode, which will darken that area. It's way too dark, so let's go ahead and take this opacity, and I'm going to take it the whole way back, and let's just darken it to the amount we think looks good. And I think I ended up with around 70%, somewhere around there. I might even not quite go that much, but maybe right around, let's say 50%. But again, decide what's right for you, for your vision for the image. So here's the before, and here's the after. Now, one thing I didn't do was on the bird's leg. On my original note, I subtracted out the bird's leg. So let's click on this mask here. We can fix that. Not a big deal. I don't even think it's a problem, but I'm going to grab a black brush, and I'm going to make it really small. It's got a really soft 0% hardness on it. Make it even smaller. And I'm just going to paint with black on this area right here very carefully. And I think I'll be good. So here is the before, and here's the after. Now, if we look at the mask by clicking this icon right here, you can see I painted that right there, okay? And let me go ahead and complete that little section right there. Hey, sometimes you just have to do these little things. You can do little touch-ups with a paintbrush. Not a problem whatsoever. Click this double arrow icon and you're back. Now, I think I forgot to say I was clicking the multiply. If you ever want to change blend modes, in this area right here, you have normal, soft light, color blend mode, screen, luminosity, overlay, linear light, and multiply. So I clicked on the multiply to change this to the multiply blend mode. Again, the before and the after, and I think I'm satisfied. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this properties panel by clicking here and make my image a little bit larger. The next thing I want to do is the background here seems a little bit too light, so I need to darken that up a bit. And to do that, I'm going to grab a curves adjustment layer. We can click this icon right here. It's real quick to get to, so click that. We're going to put that in a multiply blend mode by clicking this button right here for multiply. It darkens the entire image, but I'm going to put a black mask on here by clicking this icon just to hide it. I don't need to make a curves adjustment, so let me close the properties panel. Now I'm going to use this button again. So when I click it, it lets me know what channels I have available. Now I do have a background channel available, so if I click it, it'll add that layer mask right there, and now it's only targeting the background. Now that's way too dark, so let me pull back the opacity and build it up slowly and stop where we think we like it. And one other thing I want to point out, this is a very non-destructive workflow, so you can go back and retweak any adjustment that you would like. You can adjust this to your taste, so I'm going to start building it up. And I believe I stopped right around like 25. Right there. Here's the before and here's the after. But see how nicely that just darkens up the background. And that multiply blend mode works very nice for that. Didn't feel I needed a luminosity mask because there was a lot of different tones in there I wanted to hit all at once. Now this area right in here is a little too light, so we're going to tackle that next. To darken that, I'm going to grab a curves adjustment layer by clicking here. Let's change it to the multiply blend mode, which darkens the entire image. Let's get rid of the properties panel because we're not going to be adjusting the curve. Let's hide this adjustment by clicking on this black mask icon. It adds a black mask to this layer right here. I'm going to get a luminosity mask. Click here. I'll use a mid 2. Click on the mask calculator. Click the X for intersect. X out of here. Then we're going to go to my channels. I'm going to grab the background. And I'm going to click equals. And now you can see I have that whole background area with a midtones 2 mask on it. I'll be hand painting the area, so I'm going to output this to a selection with a black mask and a white brush. And you get this warning, just disregard it. Click OK. And now you see I have a selection, but I'm painting on a black mask. And now with that white brush with an opacity of 40%, I'm just typing my 4 key to get 40%. Nice soft edge brush, 0% hardness. I'm just going to carefully just paint my adjustment on these darker areas here. Doesn't have to be that critical, but just like that, might make the brush a little smaller and come in here and over in here underneath a bird. Just get these areas in here like that. And if there's an area you want to darken more, you can paint over it again. It'll add a little extra paint over top of that. Incrementally, it'll build up. And I think something like that is good. I think that's too much, so I'm going to take my opacity. Again, I always do this, take it off, and then just build it up slowly. And with your eye, let your eye tell you where to stop. And I think right around there, which is what, 56%? Here is the before, and here's the after. And I think everything is balanced out nicely. Now, if we want to, we can come back to this step, which is right here, curves 1. Let's click on here. The opacity is at 51%. Let me see. Let me see if I want to darken it up a little bit more. And I think I do. I think that looks better. Now, when I look at the image, my eye is drawn right to this little area here. It's a little bit light. I just want to darken that up a bit. First, let's click on curves 3, the last layer I've done. And now I'm going to do this quick and simple and easy. And to do that, first off, I want to get rid of my selection by clicking this deselect. I'm going to grab a color grading tool. Now you must click the plus to add it to the layer stack. And there it is right there. Now I'm going to make some adjustments here over the entire image, but I'm really only looking right here. What I want to start out with is the dark areas. I'm going to actually lighten up the dark areas just a little bit, somewhere around there. And as far as midtones, I'm going to darken them up and right maybe around here. Now with the highlights, there's a lot of little light areas in here, so I'm going to pull those back. I'm going to pull those highlights back to maybe right about there. Now I'm going to hide that by clicking on this black hide all layer mask. This is a big friend to you. It really helps you out. Now I'm going to we have a black mask hiding it, so I'm going to grab a white brush. So click on the white brush. I'll use that 40% opacity, but I'm going to make my brush smaller. Remember, it's very soft. And I'm just going to paint on this area right in here. It's very feathered, so it's going to be all right. Just on this brown dirt little area here. You can go over other areas and it'll build that paint up a little bit. Maybe right here and here. Here on the edge there a little bit. Okay, and I think that's pretty good. Now let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. But see, now your eye's not drawn there so much. It is a light area. And if you went too far, just take your opacity and pull it back a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it up there. Well, let's go 90%. How's that? Before and after. Now what's next? See our bird's leg? It's really light. So I want to dull that down a little bit. We need to get to our luminosity masks. So let's click the X so we can see. Click on luminosity masks. And let's find a lights mask that will target this. So that's lights 1. Here's lights 2. And that's targeting it pretty well. But let's refine it. So let's click on the levels adjustment. I'm going to pull this adjustment in like that. I'm going to darken up the shadows so I can kind of really isolate it. You see how I'm isolating it? I'm going to go ahead and grab a lasso tool and just lasso around this leg area. Just like that. Okay, so I got it isolated. We can use the mask feature, so click on this. I don't think I need to feather anything, so if you click cancel, you won't add any feathering. And look, we've selected that leg. Now we need to output the mask we've made, so let's output it to one of my favorites. I use it all the time, a color grading tool. I'll start out with highlights. I'm going to click on highlights and drag those to the left. And you see how I can take the edge off that highlight. See if I drag it to the right, see how light it gets. But I'm going to drag it to the left. I don't want to go too much because it is a highlight, but right about there. Now let's try midtones. Let's see if we can pull the midtones back. And yeah, I'm going to pull the midtones back around here. Now let's take a look. Here is the before, and here's the after. But you see how it takes the edge off. And remember, you have the opacity. If you wanted to pull the whole thing back a little bit, you could with that. But I'm going to leave it at 100% for now. We are almost done. Just a few more little things. I want to add a nice little bit of detail and pop to the bird. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come to TK Actions and grab the soft pop action, click on that, and it does its thing. Now it's added to the entire image. Here's the before and here's the after, but I love what it's done to the bird. Let's see if we can find a quick and easy way to do that. Well, we know this bird can be selected as a subject because we've done that before. So let's click on this icon. We'll select the bird as a subject. And now you see this add mask icon here. This will add or subtract a mask. But if you have a selection, it's pretty cool. Click on it and it'll add that mask right there. Now look, soft pop is just on the bird. Check it out. Here's the before and here's the after. But doesn't that make that bird pop? I love it. I want to take a moment to tell you something. I was checking my notes with my layer stack here, and I noticed I had one extra layer in here. I was playing around off camera with some adjustment, and I accidentally put this layer in here that I was working with, and I forgot to take it out. I'm not using it. So I'm going to click on it and just delete it, just in case somebody would get confused out there. I didn't need that. That was just a little experiment I was trying as I was making this video. Moving on to the next step, I thought the bird is a little darker after the soft pop, so I want to lighten him up a bit. To do that, I'm going to select subject again, and I don't want the bird's leg, so I'm going to grab a lasso tool, hold the Option or Alt key down, and just subtract the leg here because I don't want to lighten it up any. I already took steps to darken it. Let me get this properties panel out of the way. Let's X out of the color grading tool and let's click on my channels. Now I want to use the active selection because I now have an active selection. So click on that. Now I want to grab a mask calculator. I want to do an intersection. So type the X out of here. I want to intersect it with Luminosity Mask. So click on the Luminosity Mask icon. I'm going to use a mids 2. I just want to brighten up the lighter midtones in here. Let's click equals. And now you can see I have that selected rather nicely. And what I'll do is click on the curves adjustment layer icon to add a curves adjustment layer to that. I'm going to change the blend mode to screen. This is a handy trick whenever you want to lighten up midtones. So click on screen and you see the bird is lit up really well. In fact, he's overlit up. So let's take his opacity and let's drag it back. On my note, I have use an opacity between like say 40 and 60%. I'm going to try, let's try 50 for me. Here's the before and here's the after. So it just lightens them up a little bit. And now our eye is really drawn to that bird. We're nearing the finish line. Let me get rid of the properties panel. I'm going to come to the TK Actions, grab a vignette, just a regular old vignette. I'm going to leave the radius for the pixels just the way it is. It calculates out really well all the time. Click OK. And now here's the before the vignette and here's the after the vignette. I want to protect the dark shadows, so I'm going to double click right here. The layer style dialog comes up. I'm going to work with blend diff. All I'm going to do is hold my Option or Alt key down and split this slider and drag this over right about here. And that just protects some of the deeper shadows. Click OK. Now again, here is the before and here's the after. And I think I'm going to lighten that up a little bit. So I'm going to drag the opacity to the left, probably around like 36, 38%. Here's the before. Here's the after. You almost can't even tell there's a vignette there, but it really keeps you in the frame. And there's just one final thing I want to do, and I do this a lot in my edits, is lighten up the overall midtones. This is real simple to do. Come up to the Luminosity Masks, click on mids 1. This is generally the one I go with. Sometimes I'll do a mids 2, but a mids 1, well, I'll put it to a curves adjustment layer. Change the blend mode to screen, which will lighten. Now that's too much. I'm going to take it the whole way off and build it up slowly and stop where I think it looks good. And I'm going to go right there around 30%. Let me get rid of the properties panel again. Here is the before and here's the after, but just a little lightening. I might go a little more. I think I'll take it up to about 36% before and after, just a little bit of lightening. I'll take all these adjustments and put it in one group. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to hold my shift key down and click on the very bottom balance and contrast layer that I started with, and I'm going to click this icon right here. This is a group icon. It has two sides, a black mask and a white mask. Click on the right for a white mask. Now you can take a look here. Here's our overall before. This is where we started, and we end up here. So I really like this edit. I hope you give this a try. Well, there it is, everyone. If you enjoyed the tutorial today, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Click that bell notification icon, and then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified, and you won't miss one tutorial. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing!